Okay, welcome. Welcome to the Awakening Process 101. This is a podcast that's dedicated to exploring the subject of awakening in the context of our modern lives. My name is Perilla Burke, and I am a writer, photographer, and the founder of Awakening 101, which is an online spiritual resource. And I'm here today with Louise Juel, my best friend since I was 4 years old. She's a yoga teacher, a Buddhist. I'm here in Princeton, New Jersey, and she is in Copenhagen, Denmark. And today we are talking about what we're doing here. So our theme today is to just figure out, what do we mean by the awakening process? And what does awakening mean to us, and what it means to some other spiritual leaders? And then it's an exploration, a conversation for us to understand better how to bring these things into our lives, and to have awakening not be something foreign that can only happen to people like Eckhart Tolle and Ramana Maharshi. We are modern householders, moms. So how do we bring these concepts into our lives on an everyday basis?
Wonderful. Thank you, Pernilla.
Wonderful.
So first, if I can tap in there, I would like to say thank you, Pernilla, for doing this together with me. I think it's an honor. When Pernilla showed me the website that she had made as a spiritual library, which is completely free, I was really surprised and amazed about all the know-how and all the wisdom in that website. As Pernilla mentioned, this is the podcast of the awakening process and how we see it and how we can cultivate that and integrate it more in our lives.
And
So,
what is an awakening process? Like, what does that even mean?
And maybe we should start there. Maybe we should start
Absolutely.
with how do you see? I mean, when you did the when you did the website, you had an awakening moment, because that website could not have been done without you being awake. So maybe you want to start to tell us about your journey. How did you get to that point?
Okay. That's a very big question.
Yeah, but it is a big question. But I think that will help us. That will help us to maybe understand, but also to understand our own way of what is awakening for who's listening.
Yeah. The awakening process is something that I like. The words awakening process, like the process of awakening, is something that I, in the process of writing about my own journey, came up with as a when I look back at my life, and I was like, well, it's a process. It started with these moments, and then it's shifted into more than moments at some point, especially when I started meditating regularly for more than an hour a day. Then it wasn't more. It was more like longer times throughout the day where I could feel what I believe is an awakened state. The awakening process is that we begin somewhere in life, and we have moments where we discover things. So for me, that moment was, for example, our confirmation camp that we went to when we were 13, 14, and they talked about Christianity, but we didn't really, it wasn't really, we were in Sweden and we didn't really listen. But we remember, Louise and I both remember the energy of that camp. Like, there was, the teacher we had was profound. And so we remember what it felt like to be there. So that was like a moment in time where we felt that something is different than just this life that I have, where I go to school, I eat dinner, I'm kind of unhappy and anxious all the time. I don't really know why we're here. We just go through the day and eat dinner, go to bed, watch TV. That's what we do. Like, why are we doing this? And, moments like that early in life. And then as I got into my later teens and my 20s, where my story is that I went the other way. I became like a raging party girl, did drugs and all this crazy stuff. And it's sort of like my awakening process took me in the other direction. And it does that. Some people talk about that they sort of have like the dark days before they have the light days. And then when recovery started and I started yoga, the process of awakening really started happening. I would have moments, I would start reading books about spirituality. I started understanding that, wait, once something's not, this is like type of car I have and the type of job I have is not what life is about. That's not our purpose here. So then part of the process, part of my awakening process was that I met Sally Kempton when I was in 2003. And that meeting her was the sort of the doorway into a next level of awakening for me, because she introduced meditation, and she introduced it in a way that I could, me, this sort of like, trying to be cool party girl, could accept that this is actually something that I want. Because meditation for her was about finding that inner state of love that is within us. And that's something that I could connect with. So throughout the last 20 years of knowing her, and unfortunately she passed away this summer, but it's been an awakening process through meditation, through yoga, through life events too. So that's the other part of this. An awakening process is not that everything's easy. We go through life and then we start meditating and everything's fine. It's basically, along with all this opening stuff, life events, the hard ones, is what open us up even more, right? So for me and Louise, it was both addiction and recovery. We've had like life traumas throughout the years, like children being sick, or my husband had a stroke, or whatever it is, that force you to really dig deep in order to find the meaning or the purpose, or why is this happening to me? And each event pushes us further, or at least it did for me, into how can I create presence, connection? How can I trust in something beyond us? And how can I, like Louise says, how can I create value from these obstacles in life? I think that that's a description of awakening process. What do you have to add there, Louise?
No, I agree with you, and I just had some questions about what you said, but you did mention it a little bit. But you're referring to those moments, and you did example of some of the moments. But for example, our confirmation camp, I need to do this so it doesn't get too complicated. But the awakening process for me, it's to wake up to what is in the present moment.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that I like it or don't like it. Doesn't mean that, as you said, I'm coming on a pink cloud and life becomes perfect. Definitely not. When we're waking up, we open up for more possibilities, and we open up our awareness to what is in the present moment. When you refer to those moments, for example, a confirmation camp and the universe's spirituality taking us to the other side to then come back and awake even more, but you were not aware of that moment in the confirmation time. That's what I'm trying to ask you about.
Yeah.
That's something that you realized afterwards.
Afterwards, yes. So I think that if we define what awakening means, which I think that just as a like a precursor there, like, I don't think that anybody really could say awakening is this. Awakening means a different thing for everybody. It depends on who you are. I looked up the definition. I think it might have been like some dictionary online. It says here, awakening is coming into existence of awareness.
Wonderful.
And for me, it is an ability to understand that when I shift into this moment of presence, or the state of presence, I no longer am attached to the things that I thought mattered. Instead, it's just like an increased state of awareness and presence and connection to myself, connection to the world around me. So when you find a place where you are not caught and attached to your thoughts or to the everyday going on of your life, you end up in this state of awareness and presence. And the only time when I was able to have this awareness on the things that happened earlier in life is when I looked back right? Like when I was creating the website and writing all my blogs, I was like, oh, this thing in confirmation camp, like I didn't have awareness on that then, but I have awareness on it now. And that's often how it goes, right? When we look back. And I think that this is one of our questions today is the practice. You think about that right now. It's like, what could be some of the moments in your life that were those moments where something felt different? You had a moment where you felt present and you felt a deeper sense of love, unconditional sense of love to the things around you, maybe even like trees, what are those moments that we might have had even in our teenage years? Or for me, like when I was younger and was spending time at the barn where I felt like completely nurtured. But again, the awareness aspect, I think I guess it's almost like they work together in an equation. The greater your awareness, the greater your ability for awakeness, because you can actually have a moment where you pause and you look upon yourself and go, wait a minute, I'm present now. I feel connected now. Whereas before it might have happened and there was no sort of like second thought on it. There was no witness mind observing that state for you, even though you might have had that. Does that make any sense? Am I making any sense?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You're making sense. I mean,
Okay.
I think I mean, it's interesting because I just had a yoga class this morning that I was teaching, and
Mm-hmm.
we actually talked about Eckhart Tolle. And one
Mm-hmm.
of the students had never heard about Eckhart Tolle, and
Mm-hmm.
she's very, I mean, she knows a lot of things, but she never heard of Eckhart Tolle. And the other person, she knew Eckhart Tolle, and we start talking about his book, The Power of Now. And
Mm-hmm.
then we'd start talking also about the process to become more awake. And you mentioned it in the beginning of the podcast that awakening is different for each one of us. And I think there
Mm-hmm.
is also different layers of awakeness.
Yes. Yeah,
That
exactly.
that
Different levels. Yeah.
yeah, and that's and that can resonate to why you call it the process of awakening 101, because
Mm-hmm.
we can read the same text over and over again, and if you jump back, like you read a text 10 years ago and you read that
Mm-hmm.
text today, the circumstances and the experience you have done and created through lives brings you on another awareness. So you will not read the
Mm-hmm.
same text, and you will read the same text, but it will mean a different thing. I think it's important to just know that everyone has their own journey, so we can be on completely
Yeah.
different levels. And I think we didn't have any contact for many years when we were doing, I mean, in the early recovery and stuff like that. But what I'm saying now, we are on the same path and we speak the same language because we are pretty much on the same level of awareness. So
Mm-hmm.
people who's listening to this, I mean, take whatever is in there for you
Mm-hmm.
and keep on listening, because you can listen to the same podcast over and over again and you will feel like, oh, I didn't hear her saying this, but next time you hear something different.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think
I
that's
mean,
also a way of training your awareness and becoming
mm-hmm.
aware of, oh, I actually did some progress. Now it's falling down into my heart in a different way today
Mm-hmm.
than it did
Yeah.
yesterday.
I mean,
Or
yeah. I mean, I think about that like I'm sidestepping now, but my practice of meditation that I've been doing for about 20 years, and for years, and Sally Kempton talks about this in her book. For years, I would fall asleep in my
Mm.
meditation practice. I'd be sitting and I'd be like, and then now I don't, but it's a process. So I was not aware. I couldn't stay conscious enough. Slowing down my mind chatter like literally put me to sleep because I wasn't used to like not having my mind go crazy all the time. So and that's what we're talking about. It's like always a journey. Like went back to the same practice year after year after year, and it has a process in itself, right? It's a different story now than it was 10 years ago when I was like snoring through my hour of meditation. I still loved it, but I want to go back to what you
Yeah, and
said about
you stayed to it. You stick to
okay.
it.
Yeah, and I guess that's a part of this. When we talk about awakening process, it's like, I believe, I really believe, and I think that you'll agree with this, Louise, is that like for some people, this awakening process or moments of awakening that happen to us throughout life are little doorways into greater awareness where it's not, we can't really turn back. Like people don't go to India, I believe, people don't go to yoga and then go back to where they were before they started yoga. You don't quit smoking, go to yoga, and then go back to smoking. It's a doorway towards greater awareness, connection, presence, love, and truth. And these doorways there is, like I always say, there is no turning back. And that's why it's the same thing with meditation. I feel like for me, I always came back to it. I have times when I don't do it at all, through the summer when the kids are off or whatever. But once you've had that seed planted, you want more. I mean, I hope that most of us want more.
Can I fill in with something there? I love when
Yeah.
you say the seed planted, because I think this is where it starts. And I wish, I hope that things is like you're saying, that you can't go back. But I think that the seed is planted, but we don't know when it's ready to blossom. We don't know if this person in this lifetime is going to wake up or not. We can plant a seed with yoga, we can plant a seed with meditation, we can plant a seed with chanting, everything that we can plant a seed for bigger and deeper awareness. But we can't, I don't think that everybody has the capacity in this lifetime to go as deep as,
Or the willingness. I don't
or the
know.
willingness. Yeah, exactly. Maybe and you said to me also one thing, maybe they can't. I think if you want to join this journey, you need to work on it. It doesn't come.
Right.
It's like if
No.
you want to run a marathon, you practice for the marathon. If you want to be in the
Yes.
awakening process, well, you need to work for the awakening process.
Yeah.
And there
Yeah.
are tools for it. There are
Yeah.
tools like yoga, meditation, the nature. You have
Yeah.
created some tools and elements, the mandala on your website, which is excellent and very easy to access. And I think that seed that we're talking about, if that is love, gratitude, forgiveness, whatever there is, but if you have a little bit of curiosity and you want to change, because this is about transformation, it's about the
Mm-hmm.
deeper transformation of becoming, in my eyes, truly happy with the person you are, not depending on
Mm-hmm.
the money, the car, the house. Of course, it affects you, but
Mm-hmm.
you want to be able to just lean back and feel pretty good about being yourself. And I think that's maybe one of the goals with the awakening process, to get to that. And
Yeah. I mean, that is the intention of this podcast, right?
mm,
Why are we doing this? Well, because we, we had a journey. We're still
yeah.
on a journey.
Mhm.
And part of our awakening process is to come together and try to share our experiences and what we've learned so that we can plant seeds, hopefully plant seeds in your life, or like spark insight into, okay, these are the things I might try for me to open that doorway. I always think of the mandala on the website as like a roadmap, because you can't explain awakening in like, you do A and then we go to B
Yeah.
and then we go to C, right? It doesn't work like that.
No.
It's like a spider web of events, obstacles, spiritual awakening moments, and it all comes together, and then somehow you end up in a place where you're like a little bit more aware, right? So the awakening mandala and the awakening process is to be a roadmap, like where you can have like, oh, I'm going to try this, or oh, this thing I do and it works, and then you have a little bit more conscious awareness of yoga is that thing that actually opened me up, and that's what I said before. I was like, well, just think about this right now. Like we're sitting here and you're listening to this podcast. Think about what some of those things that serves as a roadmap in your life might be.
I just want to ask you, you said that yoga was your way. Can you bring us back?
I actually meant anybody. I was just making an example, but yoga was, yes, one of mine.
It was one of yours, but that's what I'm interested to, because I also think that if you really start the journey of yoga, your life change. And
Of course,
and as a yoga teacher, I see people get very, very involved, and I can see the ones who I'm educating in the yoga teacher training. I can see the ones who are there for their own personal journey. I can see the ones that wants to be the Instagram yogis, I call them, and I can see who wants to be the yoga teacher that performs and maybe not see their students. I mean, there are all different kinds of reasons why to start with yoga. But one thing which is common with all this, and even if you become a teacher or not, is that yoga brings you into your true self. And a lot of people start with yoga, think it's wonderful, and they come and they're not coming once a week, they're coming 5 times a week, and they can't do enough of yoga. They think it's great. But then when you come a little bit too close to yourself, it's like, oh, maybe I should stop with yoga and go back to CrossFit. Because you get a little bit too close. Because yoga is a philosophy. Yoga is not just the asanas, the practice. It's everything that comes with Patanjali's 8 limbs, if we want to take his philosophy into it. And I just want to ask you, Pernilla, you said that yoga, how did it feel like when the yoga was one of the door openers for you? How was it?
I think yoga is such a good example of a tool on the awakening process, because it's something we can do, right? We need actions as human beings. We're like, don't make me sit quietly. That's very, very awful and scary. But yoga is like something we can move our bodies and connect with our breath, and then have a connection to ourselves because we're in our body while we're doing it. That sort of shifts our awareness and our perspective. And for me, it was early on. I had like a year sober when I started going to this place, City Yoga on Fairfax in LA. I love, it was the greatest. And my teacher, Naeem, he's one of my first yoga teacher. He had us lay down in Shavasana at the end. And that was like the first moment I was like, and that was almost like the seed that needed to be planted for me to continue, because I felt something, and I didn't really, again, I had no awareness on this. I just felt something in my subconscious, and I'm going back tomorrow. And I was exactly what you said. I did the 5 days a week for a long time. I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and make a pot of coffee and like drive to Fairfax in the dark to go to my yoga studio. But it changed my life. I mean, and then it slowed down because it's hard to sustain 5 days a week of yoga practice if you have a life. But I think that what you're talking about is this sort of like you get to a wall a little bit where some people will back off. It just happens, and hopefully they'll find it again. But it's like, I was thinking about this actually, because I've been doing this 3-week deep meditation breakthrough program the last month. And so we meditate like 2 hours a day. And again, it's like early in the morning, and I find time. I have no social life, so it's not that hard. but at the end of those 3 weeks, and I'm just giving you a microcosm of what it's like, right? You've gone so deep that I just want to watch Netflix. I just want to watch Netflix because I need a break from my inner self. So, some people maybe, but again, if the seed has been planted, hopefully it'll stay there with you, and you go to CrossFit for a few years and then you come back.
And then you come back, exactly.
Yeah.
Or you might join another, progress the journey in a different way. Some people.
Yeah, maybe it's all of a sudden you become like a hiker and you climb mountains, and that's what you do instead of yoga. Who knows? But it's not a straight road. It's a winding road.
Very good point, I think.
Yeah. And, you could argue that the backing off and going to CrossFit or backing off and do the Netflix is what you need in order to reflect on what's happening to
Mm.
you. Like stepping back and
Mm.
going, okay, what's going on?
Mm.
And looking at it from a different
Mm.
perspective. So again, it's all a part of the process.
Okay, so I would like to tell you a little bit about my awakening moments, good and bad, but always in the end good, because it gives you another experience and you're becoming aware and you learn from it, right? I think the
Hmm.
worst thing is when you do things in life and you don't learn from it. Like when
Hmm.
you're so much in a hurry and not awake, and you just go through life and you don't stop up and reflect. And sometimes I actually ask my children when they have something challenging, I said, so what did you learn from that? And I was like, huh? I said,
Well,
yeah,
how early do you ask them?
but I can ask
That's, I think.
Holly, she's 11. I ask the
Hmm.
boys, they're 14 and 16.
No, I'm
I
not
don't
asking
all.
that. I'm saying, how early after the event do you ask them?
Oh, it depends what kind of event it is.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
if it's and also I can't ask that to end all the events. It depends how
No.
vulnerable it is. If it's too
Yeah.
vulnerable, I can't really. Then it can go weeks, and then it comes up in
Yeah.
another
Exactly.
shape.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I mean, for me, the awakening moments in life that really meant something for me, I would say that the confirmation camp was one thing. And I want to mention, so I think I was quite aware at that moment. I was so nervous when we were supposed to go into the church, and the priest told us, or told me, Louise, don't be nervous. You should just breathe in the spirit. God is the spirit.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when I did that, I felt completely calm. So that
Hmm.
was one that I took with me for many, 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 many years, so through the whole life. And then, of course, becoming sober was another awakening moment in
Hmm.
life. And meeting the Buddhist practice is definitely
Yeah.
a game changer. But that's also interesting. Now I've been practicing the Buddhist for over 20 years on daily basis. And
Hmm.
even now, I wake up in different layers. I'm just like,
Hmm.
wow, why, so we are, I
Hmm.
mean,
It
I think
never, yeah.
it
There
never,
is no
there is
destination.
no destination. And I
No.
think it's important in this process to have completely blind faith that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. You can't force these things. You need to be
Hmm.
patient. You need to live them. You need to uh, embody them, because
Hmm.
that's when they become awake for you. So I mean, I think for me, it's really that's a huge difference, because even if I read and read and read and read, if I don't practice it, so if I don't try it out to being curious about it, it doesn't really make any sense for me.
No, you have to put it into
Yeah,
practice. Yeah.
and I don't
Yeah.
create my own experience about it. So
So how is this the moment of awakening that you've had brought to you to this place right now in your life when you have a lot of going on? How has it helped you? Why do we even try this? Like what is like who cares? Like somebody could say, who cares about awakening? Why do we need that? But what in your opinion, like how are you changed in a way from your awakening process that you are meeting the challenges in your life in a different way?
but that's also a progress. I mean, I
Yeah.
I remember our friend Klaus. He wrote a book about me when living in Paris, and when I read that book, I was just an angry biatch.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm not that angry today. I would say that all the challenging we're meeting, when I becoming aware, I open up for choice. I open
Hmm.
up for an awareness of how to meet that challenge.
How
I'm not,
to how to respond. Yeah.
yeah, how to respond to it, what is my attitude towards that. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that I'm so aware, so I do that all the time, but very
No.
often today, after all this practice, I becoming aware of when I wake up, what's the attitude? How can I meet this? How can I stand strong in this? How can I bring this back to myself and not blame it on everyone else? I think that's a big game changer in the whole awakening process, because it's me waking up and it's me taking responsibility for my life and to change the things that maybe just blocked me for setting myself free, or for opening my heart up, or being more compassionate both about myself and others and not judging all the time. So like right now I'm in this moment in life where I'm very challenged on all levels. I mean, all levels. And of course, I would say if I didn't have my Buddhist practice, I don't know how I would hang in there. But that's my journey of awakening. So I becoming aware that I need to stand up every day and see what I can do to the best of my ability, you know. And of course, it's a work. And I also wanted to say that I think that when you get into the awakening process, you're getting to a point where you don't really have, of course, you always have an alternative, but it would not make me feel good to go back. You know, you open up a door of awareness that you feel, okay, you need to open up more windows.
Yeah.
Because you know that that's the journey for you to change.
Yeah, I mean, I relate a lot to what you're saying, because it's like I was so angry for so long, and I used the F word literally 5 times in one sentence for years. I mean, that's how I was, just the angriest, always, you know. And then I look at now, I don't think my husband says that now. He's like, I haven't seen you angry in like 5 years. You know, I just, you know, I'll get angry at like something, like somebody's not nice in traffic, you know, then I'm like, why did he do that? But it's not like a blowing up.
It's not
But
the finger.
no, never, you know. But I think about what it is that has changed. And because there's so much awareness, you know, meditation does this to people. You know, you have this witness mind that begins, and it sort of stays with you throughout the day, even when you're not meditating, you know, this presence, witness mind, awareness. So it's like, I think about like it, when things happen, it's basically you know, if James and I have an argument, which we don't anymore, but I'm always in a place of non-reactivity, but because I take, like, it's almost like there's no instinctual negative reaction left in me. I respond by with awareness. And usually it's like, it can be like a little bit of angry silence for a few minutes. but that moment of silence, a moment of pause, always gives me the ability, like you said, to choose. And from my standpoint, like I have practiced the practice of surrender for so long now and surrender is not that I give up, right? It's more like I surrender to the fact that he actually might be right now. Or I surrender to the fact that I'm allowed to be angry in this moment. And I've also practiced for a long time, like how can I understand where the other person's coming from? And that practice has changed everything for me, because then as soon as I can put awareness on understanding where the other person's coming from, I can always enable compassion, empathy, and understanding, because people are not like mean and rude and difficult for no reason. It comes from something like a trigger or pain or hunger and tiredness, like whatever it is. So having the choice to have like a window of pause before you react, because I lived on instinct for so many years. I mean, it was like whenever something arrived, I would like act on instinct, usually in a negative way. I always yelled at people. So it's just it's like you talk about awareness and pause and making choices. You know, that's why we create a more peaceful world around us. Because, right, so if we think about like how are our lives improved, and how can this help other people? It's like, well, just having more. Sometimes I'm like, am I bored? Is life boring now? Because it's so steady, and it's not like things aren't happening, but it's how I react to the things that are happening that are more peaceful. And in that realm, it's like life is just humming along, you know?
Mm. I think you said one really important thing. Everyone want, I mean, we need peace, and we don't want to have
Hmm.
a lot of arguments. And by understanding where people are coming from, you do cultivate more compassion, and you're becoming more, you understand, and you can lift the perspective a little bit higher up,
Hmm.
knowing, and
Hmm.
it's not really your fault, it's an energy, and what's triggering and stuff like that. But I think that the awareness, the process of awareness is important if we do want to change this world. And it starts with each one of us,
Hmm.
because if
Hmm.
I go around and say the effort and give the finger and I'm being angry like we both were, I mean,
Hmm.
and completely self-centered and yeah, but
There was nothing but me.
it
It
was
was
nothing
always
by
about
me.
me.
And the worst thing is that I didn't even think it was about me. But that's how self-centered it was. So
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to do something, we need to change, and we need to practice. And I
Yeah.
think one thing that's
And
been,
how do we change? Right? That's the
yeah,
question.
how do we change? And I think, I mean, and you and I, both of us, I think, always had a very seeking spirit.
Yeah.
And I think when you have a seeking spirit, the path is there. And then, of course,
Yeah.
there are people, they don't have the seeking spirit, and they will
Yeah.
not come into this podcast.
But they won't listen to this
No,
podcast. Yeah.
exactly. They will not come into this podcast. And a lot of people are in that state of life.
Yeah.
They don't wake up and don't have the seeking spirit. But that means
That's
that,
fine.
and that's fine,
Yeah.
because that means that they can give us even more the willingness to practice and become, because we know that maybe we can plant the seed one day, or
Hmm. So I think that the beginning, a tool that we can use to start questioning is just
mm,
asking yourself,
yeah,
why am I doing this? Why
such
am I reacting this way? Especially when you're in a relationship and you
mm,
you start noticing that, or with your parents or your siblings. It's not, it doesn't have to be a, but then you can ask yourself, like, if you get triggered over and over and over again, and it's the sort of same pattern, like, what is it within me that makes me so angry about this specific thing?
mm,
And that question will shift how you adapt or how you
mm,
react. Because for me, that's fascinating. Like, if I react the same way to this one thing that my husband does, like, over and over and over again, then I want to know why.
mm,
Like, why am I like this? And I think that, but again, like, if you're listening to this, you're asking yourself those kind of questions already. So I guess I wanted
I love it.
to, yeah, I just want, like, to sort of sum up, because I have to take my kids to school. But I had written down, we talked about how we define awakening, and of course, we can talk about that. And and Louise and I, we just said it from our perspective. It's not how it is for everybody. Like, everybody has a different definition of awakening. But I wrote down some quotes from other teachers that I find helpful. So, first one is from this guy. His name is Herb Kagan, and I wrote this down like 8 years ago, so I don't remember exactly where I got it from, but I keep a note in my phone with, like, quotes that I like. I put them in there, and he says that spiritual awakening for him was like a dimmer switch
Mm,
gradually turning on. Like, so
wonderful.
first it's a little bit dark, and then it gets a little lighter. And then he says, at the very beginning of his journey, he said, I didn't know what I didn't know. So it's just, I love the idea of the dimmer switch.
Mm, me too.
So confirmation camp, or the day we got sober, was a dimmer switch that was
Mm,
was getting a little brighter,
mm,
and then over the years it gets brighter and brighter and
mm,
brighter. And then going on, Eckhart Tolle says, I've chosen quotes from all over the place, so it's not just awakening is the realization of presence,
Mm.
right? And I mean, if you think about it, he wrote The Power of Now. I think that book came out 20 years ago. I think it was
Yeah,
2003.
I think so too. I got it.
And I remember like reading it the first time. I'm like, what is he talking about? The power of now. But of course, now I'm like, yeah, I
Mm.
mean, that's what it is, right?
Mm.
When we're completely present,
Mm.
that is when we feel deeply connected.
Mm.
Our awareness is at its
Mm.
greatest moment, and we're awake to
Mm.
what is here right now,
Mm.
right? And then Ram Dass
Mm.
says, suffering is grace and becomes functional for your awakening.
Mm.
So in
So
this
true.
sentence, we're back to these obstacles that we talk about, like the suffering that we go through that provides doorways into deeper
Mm.
spirituality. That suffering pushes us
Mm.
further into
Mm.
our awakening process because we have to do something,
Mm.
right? So I love how he said it becomes that suffering is grace and becomes functional
Wonderful.
for you for your awakening.
Mm.
Okay, and then we'll do the last one, and this is David Hawkins, who is he's my main man.
He's your main man. Yeah.
um, he says, in a completely surrendered state, free from resistance and ego, we merge with our souls and with the divine.
I love it.
So he's talking about the awakened state. He wrote a book about surrender, which is like a Bible for the practice of surrender. But basically, when we have no resistance to life, we flow with it, and we are in an awake state.
Mm.
So that's another thing that you can think about. Like, how the hell do we do that?
So many goodies here. I love it. There's so many things that we can nerd with.
Little seeds that we're trying to
Mm.
plant
Mm.
for you to shift your perspective of what awakening could be for you
Mm.
in your life, in your own life.
Wonderful.
So thank you so much, everybody. That's all the time we had for today. I hope that our conversation has sparked some insight into your own awakening process and into your own awakening moments. I am Perilla Burke, here with my best friend Louise Juel, and you are listening to the Awakening Process 101. We hope that you will join us again. Thank you.